Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Farzy Show. My name is Marc Farzetta here at the Steven Singer Studios. That's what I got for you today as far as the Sixers go today, for two reasons. One, they lost to the Charlotte Hornets, snapping their winning streak, but Joel Embiid kept his 30-point game streak going. And now ties Will Chamberlain and that Allen Iverson fellow with 8 straight 30-point games. Awesome, great, happy. Outlook still not very good for the 76ers, and it's got nothing to do with the fact that the Sixers lost 109-98 to that Charlotte Hornets team. It's got nothing to do with the fact that Joel Embiid, despite another 30-point game, also had 7 turnovers in this game. As a matter of fact, more turnovers than he had rebounds, but I digress. What's more affecting me, and we got a lot of Eagles conversations today we're going to get to. G. Cobb is going to be on the show to talk to us about Jonathan Gannon in particular, and how Jonathan Gannon is all of a sudden a hot coaching candidate in the NFL, a hot head coaching candidate in the NFL. So we'll get into all that with G. Cobb coming up in a minute. We'll also let you hear from Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, who I will warn you might be too much all business going into this game. He got asked a question by Jeff McClain about his high school career, and he got the next question. He got the Rosenhaus treatment. Next question. That's what he got. But we'll get into it. We'll let you hear the whole thing play out. Let's hear from Nick Sirianni talking about what the turning point was this season. Because if you go back, if you remember, going into that Week 16 matchup, Nick Sirianni was asked about things that this Eagles team needed to do. They were 2-4, 2-3 at the time, and he was asked about what they needed to do to make adjustments. What adjustments can this team make? And Nick Sirianni said, "Well, the good thing about a short week is that you kind of have a mini bye week after that, where you could do some self-evaluating. You can look at your team and say, this is what we need to do better. This is what we need to do a little bit less of, and all that other stuff." They did that. I remember at the time thinking, okay, this will be a big jumping off point. This is a little bit of a judgment week. I remember talking about it like that. Okay, you had a mini bye week, if you will, 10 days between games. How did you improve? Well, unfortunately, they came out the following week, and they lost to the Raiders in Las Vegas. Okay. Now, if you want to say after that Raiders game there was a big turnaround, then I'll kind of believe you. But in terms of what we saw game plan-wise, there wasn't a whole lot of change. They started running the ball a little bit more against the Raiders, but then again, they also ran the ball pretty well in the second half against the TB Buccaneers. So after that evaluation, I guess they said, all right, well, let's just keep running the football and see where it takes us. Well, it took you to the playoffs, but we'll give you Nick Sirianni's take on that, and we'll also let you hear from the man, the myth, the legend, Darius Slay. And why do we want to let you hear from Darius Slay? Because why the hell not? The man is the most entertaining person other than Joel Embiid in the city of Philadelphia. So that's why we'll let you hear from Darius Slay, because he's asked about a couple of games that he played in Tampa and how that has prepared him for this time, making a trip to Tampa. So that's what we got for you today. But let's start it off with the news that we used yesterday. Here was where we left off with Adrian Wojnarowski on Ben Simmons and why the Sixers' outlook beyond losing to Charlotte is still pretty bleak. Here was Woj yesterday with, and I'll reference her as this again, angel sent from the heavens to talk to us about basketball, Malika Andrews. Here is Woj with Malika Andrews.
Just under a month away from the February 10th trade deadline, is there any movement for a possible Simmons trade here?
Malika, there is no movement.
The laugh still gets me every single time. The laugh, I've watched that 1,000 times. When Woj tweeted out his stuff that I'm about to show you yesterday, I replied to it with this saying just, so in other words, there's been no movement. So I've been binging Seinfeld on Netflix. So like all my mind references just boom, right to Seinfeld. So it's like, remember this episode where George was like, he thinks he has cancer and he wants in medical training, the doctor to be like, cancer, get out of here. Like my thought went right to Woj being like, Ben Simmons trade, get out of here. Movement on that front, get out of here. It should be part of the reporter's journalistic training. Get out of here. That's kind of how I felt. Well, that's what I felt Woj was saying with the no movement. Malika, oh, you're crazy. You're crazy. So anyway, let's get serious here. So Woj then takes to Twitter before he does anything else. And here he is on Twitter yesterday saying, ESPN sources, agent for Ben Simmons, Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul met with the Sixers, Daryl Morey and Elton Brand. Hey, Side note, Elton Brand's still with the Sixers in the front office, for those that forgot. To discuss the status and stalemate today. Stance is unchanged. Simmons no closer to playing this season, and Sixers are determined to bring back a significant player in the trade. The lunch meeting that they had in Philadelphia with Paul and the Sixers management took to talk about through the ongoing Simmons situation. Sources said Sixers continue to want Simmons to return to the floor, but there's no movement on that front, nor traction on a trade now. The deadline is February 10th, so less than a month away. Now, some people might tell you that there was no talk about Ben Simmons' mental health status. That is actually untrue. It was mentioned in Woj's story, and this excerpt right here is from Woj's story on ESPN.com. He said that Ben Simmons continues to go through his mental health issues, and they're still trying to work his way back onto the court. But he also wrote this: the Sixers are targeting a top 25 player or players for trades, but those kinds of assets have yet to be made available to them in offers, according to sources. Some teams have been described to the Sixers asking price for Simmons' deal as growing in price, not declining, according to ESPN sources. So that's where we're at right now. Not only are the Sixers dug in, but it's like every time you say to the Sixers, all right, I'll give you $5 for Ben Simmons, they're like, make it $7. And they're like, all right, we'll make it $7. And they're like, you better make it $10. Like, they appear to be going the wrong direction in all this, which is to be admired in a little bit. However, watching last night's basketball game and watch them lose and watch them play sloppy with the basketball, and I think Doc Rivers did a great job last night of kind of summing it up in his press conference. During the game, awful, and we'll get to that. But in his press conference, I thought he summed it up rather well when he said they couldn't match the Hornets' intensity last night. You're on your home floor. You have a center who is going for history. You have your point guard back with Tyrese Maxey, and you couldn't match the intensity of the Charlotte Hornets. Okay. Not good. It also didn't help that I had to watch Andre Drummond and Joel Embiid on the floor at the same time throughout the fourth quarter of that basketball game. When the Sixers were starting to make a run, I didn't really think Andre Drummond was the go-to guy in that situation. Oh, you could get a mismatch down low. This isn't 1990. I don't need two centers on the floor at the same time, especially one that I could always describe in Andre Drummond as lumbering, a lumbering center. He missed some big free throws last night, to his credit. After the game, went to the locker room, came back to the floor, and he worked on his free throws. I'll give him credit for that. I want to acknowledge that. But I don't know what the hell Doc Rivers was thinking and having both those guys on the court as long as he did in the last quarter of that game. It made zero sense to me. And finally, when I saw Tyrese Maxey getting ready to check in, I said, okay, before the game, apparently Doc Rivers had said the thing he missed the most about not having Tyrese Maxey was his speed. So now he has Tyrese Maxey back. And in the fourth quarter of this game, I got to watch the opposite of speed. I got to watch old molasses there. Andre Drummond. Again, I admire that he worked on his foul shots after the game. But I got to watch that in the fourth quarter. Doc, what are you doing to us, man? Come on. I digress. Back to Ben Simmons. Watching that game last night only just continues. Every Sixers loss make me just continue to think about how this team needs another star player. And wherever you are emotionally on Ben Simmons, I can't deny the fact that he is a star player. He's well worthy of a 3-time All-Star nod that he has gotten. He is a defensive stalwart. He's a great facilitator. We all know what he can be, and we all know what he is. Do I wish the other parts of his game have stepped forward? Absolutely. And I was one of the people banging the drum for that before anybody, even at the draft. When he was drafted, I was like, I want this guy, but you never want to see the guy you're about to take number 1 overall look disinterested. And that's exactly what he looked like at LSU. You want him to be like a guy who was always hungry and wanting to prove something, a chip on his shoulder. He could not have looked like more the opposite of that, which is why I still understood the Brandon Ingram people. So watching that at LSU goes, all right, I don't know if this is the guy. Because you never want him to look like he is just not interested in what he's doing, regardless of him knowing that he's just committing or fulfilling a family favor to a member of the coaching staff on the LSU squad. So Ben Simmons comes here, 3-time All-Star. And really, we don't see leaps and bounds of improvement from him over his 4 or 5 years with the 76ers. And now we're at the point where he won't play for the 76ers. Now we're at the point where the mental health argument is coming into this. One of the things that really hurt that argument yesterday was that in the initial reporting between Rich Paul and Daryl Morey and Elton Brand and Clutch Sports was that there was no mention of mental health. Woj later pointed it out in his story, as I just mentioned, but then other stories start to come out, like Sam Amick, I believe it was, who had the story about Ben Simmons would be ready to play in a matter of a couple of weeks. He would need time for conditioning to get into shape, and then he could come back out and be ready to play. So conditioning is the bigger issue, more so than mental health. Ladies and gentlemen, the only thing preventing me from blowing a gasket over this, when I really respect, if I respect anything about society over the last couple of years, it's that we have learned to be a little bit more compassionate and understanding about other people's mental health issues. And if one person took that for granted, or if one person tried to manipulate that and abuse that evolution of human thought and compassion and understanding to their own benefit, to not play with fellow players that may or may not have proverbial thrown him under that bus, like Joel Embiid saying the turning point was his pass to Thibault against the Hawks, or Doc Rivers saying he didn't know if he could win a championship with Ben Simmons as his starting point guard. If that is mental health, then then we've all been lost for a long time, and we don't know what mental health is. But I'll go ahead and reassure you with this: I don't think that's mental health. I think that's a guy who doesn't like his coworkers. And if that's all of a sudden a mental health aspect, I think that is a mockery of people that actually have to go through depression, anxiety, and everything like that. Obsessive compulsive disorder, whatever. That's a mockery of it. And if all of a sudden Ben Simmons, now this is why I'm not blowing a gasket over it, because we haven't heard from Ben Simmons. But when Ben Simmons all of a sudden is traded to another team, whenever that happens, I look forward to that first press conference because I want to hear it from him. And I go back to this a lot. If Doc Rivers didn't throw him out of practice when he threw him out of practice, Ben Simmons was supposed to address the media that day. So a little hint of common sense that I have tells me something would have allowed Ben Simmons to miss that media session. Or if he would have sat through that media session, he would have been along the lines of next question, or I don't know. Like he would have been despondent, more along the lines of I'm just here so I don't get fined, a la Marshawn Lynch. But part of me does wonder, what if he didn't get thrown out of that practice with the Sixers, where he supposedly had a practice jersey in his pocket or a cell phone in his pocket, whatever it was. That is something I wonder. These are the things I think about, folks. But that's what Woj got into yesterday. There was only a little mention of the mental health issue. So apparently, if you're going through mental health issues by Ben Simmons standard, you just play in the NBA and get traded, and you'll be fine. And then you get a couple of weeks to run around and get in game shape, and then you go out there and play. I look forward to the first time we hear from Ben Simmons, and that's the only thing that is preventing me from just my mind exploding and my head exploding, is that we haven't heard from him yet. All these are reports. All these are leaks here and there. I look forward to hearing from Ben Simmons one day. And with where we're at right now, both sides dug in, as Woj said. I'll let you hear from him one more time about a more updated piece that he had yesterday with friend Kevin Gandhi. One of the things Woj got into yesterday was that both sides basically have steam shovels, and they're just dug in beyond any semblance of advancement. But here is Woj yesterday trying to sum it up for everybody one more time.
Listen, each would have loved to have heard something new from the other side. Rich Paul would have loved to have heard from Sixers management that, hey, we're going to take the best offer out there on Ben Simmons here before the trade deadline and move him on. That's not what Philly's doing. They continue to wait and want to wait to get back, a significant player that keeps them in the championship hunt. And the Sixers would have loved to have heard that Ben Simmons, has a willingness or an ability to come back and rejoin this team this season before a trade happens. And the Sixers did not hear that today from Rich Paul. So listen, I was told the meeting was cordial. These sides have been professional with each other. But this stalemate goes on. The Sixers right now do not have any real traction on a Ben Simmons deal. I talk to teams out there who say not only has Daryl Morey not lowered his expectations for a return on Ben Simmons, they've gotten even a little stiffer in recent weeks. So both sides are dug in.
Both sides dug in. Okay. Here's the thing. I would have loved to have been a fly. I would have loved to have been the waiter at that lunch meeting. You ever have been in a lunch meeting where there's a little turmoil? They aren't fun. And if one side isn't apologizing or the other side, whatever, and it's just kind of the same thing. Hey, what do you got? Nothing new. What do you got? Nothing new. Do you have lobster bisque? I'll have the lobster bit. Like, how does that go? What's the conversation like at that table? My guy ain't playing. We ain't trading him. I'll just have a salad to go. Like, what the hell? What is that conversation like at that table? So, Rich, how's Adele doing? Working on any songs? Is she writing a song about the Ben Simmons saga? Nah. Okay. Can we get this wrapped up? Just a check. Thank you. So that's where we're at right now in 76ers land. Sixers are back at it tomorrow night against the Celtics, 7 o'clock. Lottie freaking da. Anyway, hey, football's fun. We all like football. Is it just me, or does the week leading up to a playoff game feel like a bye week? Like, it feels like it just drags on where it's like, is it football yet? Can we have football again? That's how I feel, especially when it's against, the greatest ever, Tom Brady, especially when it's a Buccaneers team that more or less smoked you during the regular season. That's kind of how I feel before this Bucs game, before this playoff game. It's like, get here already. Come on, Sunday, 1 o'clock. Let's go. And sure enough, we're not there yet. But this week just feels like it's dragging and dragging and dragging. And I'm overanalyzing, and I'm talking to a lot of different people about whether or not this Eagles team will make adjustments, whether or not it will be the middle of the defensive line, getting after Tom Brady, whether or not Jonathan Gannon will be more aggressive, whatever you're going to say. Like, we talked to Tom McCarthy yesterday. Garry Cobb will get into it with us today about how aggressive this defense needs to be against Tom Brady and what they need to do specifically to get him a little bit rocked. Just a little bit rocked and uncomfortable, and throw off that timing with his receivers, some of which he doesn't have all that much experience with. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Offensively speaking, I want to see Jalen Hurts really step up and play a great game. I want to see some big throws from him. I want to see him literally step up in the pocket and deliver throws downfield. Devontae Smith, I want to see with a big part of this game. I need to see this Eagles team make things happen in order to keep up with the Bucs team that you're probably not going to really be able to. You might be able to contain them a little bit, but you won't be able to control them. You won't be able to stop them, as the old saying goes. So that's what I'm going to be looking for in this game. A lot of it comes to the offensive side of the football, because that's what's under great evaluation. Really throughout this entire season of what you're doing offensively, whether that be with your running backs or that most notably be with your quarterback, as we all try to evaluate what Jalen Hurts will be to this franchise going forward. Whether or not he's more along the lines of what Jason Avant told us a couple of weeks ago, where he's just a guy for right now, as we've said really throughout the season, or he is going to be the guy for the foreseeable future here in Philadelphia. This game, this playoff run, will give us a lot of information as to what the Eagles are thinking about Jalen Hurts and what he means to this franchise going forward. Let's jump into some of the sound that we heard yesterday from these press conferences. One of them was Nick Sirianni talking about this football team and how that Week 6 matchup against Tampa Bay Buccaneers was a big turning point. He was asked this by Tim McManus of ESPN, and here is how Nick Sirianni approached that answer to that question.
As hard as Thursday night games are sometimes to prepare for, the back end of it, if you're using that time wisely, the back end of it can be used to rest, and then to really, as coaches, study what's been working, what hasn't been working, and we definitely took advantage of that as coaches. We studied, that very thing, what's working for us, what's not working for us, and we came away with some answers there. Now, did that show up the very next week? Against the Raiders, it started to, and then we kind of got in a little bit of a hole. We didn't play our best game there either, as we all know. But I think what you saw is, it started to turn that game as far as our, kind of who we were and what we were doing, not only in the run game, but also in the passing game and the way we were doing some things in the passing game as well.
When that game took place against Tampa Bay, everyone said, oh, you can't run against Tampa. They're number one rushing defense in the league. Oh, Todd Bowles says rushing defense, it's so great. And it was. And then the second half of that game, and what really blows my mind is Miles Sanders was the only running back that got a carry in that game. Jalen Hurts ran the ball, I believe, 11 times in that game to Miles Sanders 9. So they got 20 carries, broke 100 yards. Okay. Jordan Howard, I don't even think Nick Sirianni had met Jordan Howard yet. Boston Scott was like, who's the guy? What? Boston Scott? Huh? Kenny Gainwell. Yeah, Kenny Gainwell. Yeah, he didn't get a touch. And then ever since then, you did see the running game start to get relied on a little bit more against the Raiders, but albeit they lost that game. And then they played some pretty crappy opponents, like the Lions, for instance. And they were able to do whatever they wanted to do offensively. And then after that, to go through the schedule real quick, you played the Chargers. That's where your defense changed a little bit. That was really, for me, if you had to really make a turning point on the season, I don't think necessarily it was that game against Tampa Bay. It might be offensively speaking when you started to realize you had a great offensive line and a pretty good stable of running backs to run behind that offensive line. But I think overall the biggest turning point was after the Raiders game, because that's where you saw your defense start to get, after the Chargers game. That's where you saw your defense start to get a little bit more aggressive. After you lost to LA, you played the Lions, then you lost to the Chargers. And in that game, you started to be more aggressive, defensively speaking, by getting after the quarterback, by blitzing a tad bit more, and you kept running the football. So that was the time you really saw both sides of the ball start to adjust. Both Jonathan Gannon's defensive scheme, for lack of a better term, philosophy, I believe is what Steven Nelson told us, and you also started to see a change in Nick Sirianni be a lot more run heavy in the offense. And go figure, that's where the Eagles started to go on their run to end the season and make the playoffs. But Nick Sirianni goes back to that mini bye week against Tampa Bay, where they were able to do a little self-evaluating and realize what was really working for him and what wasn't, and do a little bit more of what works as opposed to what doesn't. It's basic stuff. One of the other things Nick Sirianni got into that I'll just tell you about is a conversation he had with Jason Kelce this week. People were talking about it. They always ask about, hey, is it different, the playoffs? What's the approach like and all that stuff? And Jason Kelce, in his meeting with Nick Sirianni, told the head coach, it's funny, people always try to make this big difference between playoff football and regular season football. The stuff that loses you games, and this is what Kelce said, the stuff that loses you games in the regular season still loses you games in the postseason. You just avoid that stuff, and you're good to go. It's the same philosophy. So whatever that is, whatever was working for you during the regular season, keep it going. Whatever wasn't working for you, throw it out the window. You don't need that. And that's what Kelce's point was to his head coach. Nick Sirianni also talked about how he played the video of Kobe Bryant addressing the Eagles in 2017 prior to the Super Bowl, hoping that message would resonate with this team and get them a little bit more focused before taking on Tampa Bay and Tom Brady and company. One of the other things is when it comes to focus, when Jalen Hurts addressed the media yesterday, Jeff McClain tried going back to his high school days, to when apparently Jalen Hurts had his first ever postseason action in high school. I don't know anything about Jalen Hurts' high school football team. I don't know anything about the football team Jalen Hurts played against in his first postseason action as a, 17-year-old kid. But nonetheless, I guess Jeff McClain did some digging and was hoping to get a little bit more information from Jalen Hurts. And I assume Jalen Hurts just wasn't having it. Well, I don't assume. Here it is.
Go ahead, Jeff, and then Dave.
Jalen, just taking you back a little bit here, but what was it like when you finally led Channelville to the playoffs for the first time in over 20 years? And what did you learn about yourself playing in that first game against a really stacked Manville team?
Well, what are we getting at with this?
Just in terms of like your first kind of playoff experience, and what was it like playing in that type of environment for the first time? And how do you feel like, what'd you learn about yourself playing in, that type of knockout stage?
Next question.
Somebody on the internet, I forget who it was, they dubbed in the lady reporter that was asking Bill Belichick about his New Year's resolutions. Jalen just says, next question. I assume it would have been the same response if that was the question. I thought it was legit. And then what's funny, somebody else later in the press conference asked Jalen Hurts about running track in high school, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I ran the 4x4. I ran the 4x1. I was the third leg in the 4x1, or the 4x1. I was the third leg in that. I really enjoyed it. Where I come from, and play football. You also ran track." And I'm like, "You'll talk about track, but you won't talk to McClain about a legit question about your first ever playoff experience." You got Nick Sirianni talking about guys he played football with in elementary school. And Jalen Hurts won't answer a question about his first ever postseason experience as a high school athlete, I guess. I don't know. He's laser focused, folks. He's laser focused on Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. He was asked for some specifics about what's changed between, for him personally, between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game in Week 6 and going into this game, how he's evolved as a quarterback in the NFL and what's worked for him, what hasn't. And he says that he's got better at everything. He's improved on everything. He's been focused on the game. He's been doing his homework. And he's worked his ass off to make sure that he's improved every single week. One of the things we'll get into with G. Cobb is one of the big knocks on Jalen Hurts. Oh, I can't read a defense. I've seen him read a defense. What I haven't seen is him get better at reading defenses. There's times where you see it, and you're like, okay, good. He recognized where the safety was. He looked the guy off. That's great. One of the perfect examples was the missed throw to Goddard in the first Washington game, if I'm not mistaken, or second Washington game, where he had Dallas Goedert wide open in the corner of the end zone, and he didn't see him. Well, he didn't see him because the way he was coached to read the defense, he called a specific play and then threw a bad ball to, I want to say it was Quez Watkins across the middle. But it was Kenny Gainwell. No, it was Quez Watkins across the middle. That ended up being short of the goal line, and he had Dallas Goedert wide open. Well, that's how he was coached. He read the defense, and he did what he was supposed to do. That was actually a good play as far as reading the defense went. Bad play overall because he didn't see a wide open guy in the corner of the end zone. But that's an example of him actually reading what's in front of him. And even Nick Sirianni said that after the game, that was a good read by Jalen Hurts, but unfortunately the play just didn't work in their favor. That's one of the things Jalen Hurts says he's got better at, but we'll get G. Cobb's take on that coming up in just a second. Now, speaking of a defense and making adjustments, Darius Slay has been, I think, as I said, I stole the line from Shaq talking about Paul Pierce. Darius Slay has been the truth this year. The best corner in football when it comes to the opponent's passer rating when thrown in his direction. Quarterbacks are terrible. They don't like to do it. Darius Slay, number one in the NFL at that stat. So he goes into this game against Tampa, and he's only played in a handful. It wasn't like he played in the NFC South, where he's facing Tampa twice a year, but he's faced them a couple of times. He played in Tampa a couple of times as a member of the Detroit Lions. So yesterday he gets asked the question about playing in Tampa, and I'll just let this play out for you. He gets asked about playing in Tampa and what it's like to have that experience in his back pocket going into the playoffs down there.
I mean, shoot, I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't even know how to answer that question because it don't matter where I play at, unless it's Seattle or the Saints. They stadium lit. So, shoot, I mean, I played in Tampa a couple of times, man. It's no different than playing there and shoot a home game, except for just somebody cheering for you and somebody ain't. So, I don't know really how to really put that question to perspective, but I just go in there and play. Shoot.
The next time my wife asks me what I went for dinner, I'm going to answer it exactly as Darius Slay answers it. So I don't know how to answer that question. These guys didn't play in the NFC South. I don't know why that's relevant. I think I've told you my story of being down there, not playing, obviously, but I'll get to it in our chat check, I'm sure, a little bit later in the show. Let me tell you about my good friend Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, real quick, Flyers news. Claude Giroux back at practice. Claude Giroux's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday to Capitan. Happy birthday to him. And Ivan Provorov back at practice as well. Travis Konechny back at practice. Like I said, Flyers drop the puck 7 o'clock tonight in Boston against the Bruins. So hopefully they get a nice win and get off that 5-game losing streak. Let me tell you about my good friend Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not buying your diamonds, if you're not buying your jewelry at Steven Singer Jewelers, no offense when I ask you this question, what the hell's the matter with you? You want to be treated fairly? You want to get the perfect price every single time? You want to feel like you don't have to haggle or negotiate to get a beautiful quality diamond? Go to Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut. Steven's been in the love business in Philadelphia for over 40 years, helping people fall in love. cementing engagements and weddings. That's what he does. Steven Singer, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, puts everything at the perfect price so that when you walk in, you don't feel like you have to be under the pressure of negotiating or haggling. He doesn't mark things way up just to mark it down in front of you like you're getting some kind of deal. No, the jewelers that do that, guess what? They're still making out. They're still taking advantage of you. Not at Steven Singer. Comfortable. Easy. At I Hate Steven Singer Jewelers. That's I Hate Steven Singer Jewelers. One place, one price. IHateStevenSinger.com. Always fast and free shipping at IHateStevenSinger.com. It's January 13th. Tomorrow it'll be a month till Valentine's Day. Fellas, are you prepared? Go to Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, right in Philadelphia. IHateStevenSinger.com. Without further ado, let's jump on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line. Talk to our good friend G Cobb with you. Rothman Orthopaedics guest line, former Eagle himself and Cowboy, but nobody remembers that. Garry Cobb. What's up, G Cobb?
I'm doing great. I tell you, it's an exciting time in Philadelphia. You know, we're ready for this game, man. I got a lot on the line, and you know, I ran into a guy over at a breakfast place over in what was it, Penrose Diner.
All right,
a buddy
yeah,
of mine
sure.
wanted to go over there, so we ran into Jason Kelsey over there. He's over there eating breakfast. So, man, you could just feel it. You know, this is going to be very exciting, man. I'll tell you that.
The way he was attacking his scrappling eggs.
Yeah, hey.
It's Ndamukong Suh.
I would have loved to play with him, man. I don't know how he does it. How does a guy his size block these guys that are outweighing him by, you know, 100 pounds? He's an amazing athlete. And I just wish Miles Sanders, you remember that play where Jason's way downfield?
Yeah.
If he'd have just followed Jason, that would have gone down maybe as one of the greatest blocks ever. Because you're making a block that's 50 or 60 yards downfield.
Absolutely. I know the argument was that if he would have cut it to the outside, I forget who the defensive back was, but he would have caught him. I want to say it was against the Washington football team. It was Giants or Washington. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And you saw Jason Kelsey just throw his arms up in the air like, just follow me, man. That's all you had to do. But when you saw Jason, he was really into this game, obviously.
Well, yeah. He was chatting, you know, because he was over there with Connor Barwin, and they were chatting it up, and they had done a piece. I don't know who was doing a piece on them, but the cameras were over there, and they were chatting it up, and they were getting ready to do some serious eating after doing some camera work and that sort of thing. So he seemed he looks like he's ready to go, man. He's smiling.
Look at this. I didn't even know I was getting the scoop about Jason Kelsey and Connor Barwin's breakfast, but here you are. You're breaking the news of breakfast. There you are. In all seriousness, you look at a game like this. You mentioned you don't know how a guy like Jason Kelsey at his size could block guys that are outweighing him by 75, 100 pounds. And then I look at this age aspect of it with Tom Brady. Could you imagine playing football, although I know it was a different position, at 44 years of age, Garry Cobb?
No way. I mean, I couldn't imagine playing at that age, and as a quarterback playing at that age. It's all of the hits he's taken, and somehow he's able to continue to play, especially at the level he's playing at. He's just an extraordinary player, and the thing that comes out in Brady is the son of a gun is a competitor. He is a competitor, and that's what drives his teams. And I just think he's a great leader because he doesn't just push the guys, but see, if you are a leader on a team, you got to do it first. Before you tell guys, you ask them to make a commitment. And he makes a commitment to be the best player he can be all the time and expects it out of his teammates. And he really drives them because from what I've heard about how he will work on a play and then say, hey, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again until we get that play right. Mm-hmm. He's just an exceptional competitor. And that's what's made him, the greatest quarterback that's ever played the game. And he's the greatest winner And I think that really sticks out the most is he's the greatest winner that's ever played in the NFL.
I could not agree with that more. On the other side of this, the very other end of the spectrum is Jalen Hurts, 23 years old, a little bit younger there than Tom Brady. What would you tell a guy if you were in there in the locker room with him? What advice would you give a young quarterback like that before he sets out for his first playoff game?
Well, I think Jalen, if you listen to him talk, he's really following. He's got the same mentality that Tom Brady has because he got it from, Alabama. He got it from Oklahoma. He talks about the coaches. He was talking about Lincoln Riley, in fact, the other day. And so he talks about his coaches and, of course, that guy down in Alabama. Talks about him all the time. But there's a mentality to winning. First of all, you've got to be prepared. You got to come in totally prepared for what the other team is probably going to do, what do they like to do, and you study the other team, and then you know what it is that's your strength. And so he comes in, and I think one game this year where he got off of that, and you could see he really struggled, and that was that Giant game. Mm-hmm. Other than that, he knows that if the Eagles are going to win, and really this is what is winning in football, take care of the football. And Jalen's done a pretty good job of that throughout the season. So he knows that. Now, he's getting better as a thrower, but he knew, take care of the football. And so he's going to do that, and you can expect him to do that on Sunday, is he will take care of the football, and they got to be able to effective running the ball, but that's going to be their key to winning is they got to run the football well, and they got to avoid turnovers.
I 1,000% agree with that. When it comes to Hurts, though, one of the knocks on him, aside from throwing, and I agree with you that he's becoming a better thrower, how is he at reading defenses? Because one of the things you always see on Twitter, he can't read a defense. My assessment is he can. He just needs to really improve that part of his game. What's your assessment of that aspect of his game?
I think you hit it on the head, Mark, is that he's getting better at it. He needs to improve in that area. That's one of the areas where he's got to be able to do it quicker. And I saw some things in the second Washington game. And, he twisted his ankle. And then ultimately, it might not have been a bad thing because it made him stay in the pocket. And he stayed in the pocket and he was able to throw the ball outside. He stayed with the routes because I think sometimes the receivers, they might not say anything, but they can get frustrated because he gives up on the route immediately and takes off and runs. But he started staying in the pocket, being more patient. And he was able to stand in the pocket with a guy in his face, and he hit Devontae Smith with a throw that was right on the money. And then he hit Dallas Goedert with a throw that was right on the money. That's what you got to be able to do in the NFL. To be a big-time franchise quarterback is you got to be able to operate from the pocket. We know he can run and all that, but he's getting better doing that, and that's what's going to be – he's going to need to do that in this game. See, this is a game where can't afford to turn the ball over, and the big thing is they're going to have to run plays where he's effective and accurate throwing the ball from the pocket, and then he's going to have to get loose on some runs too because chances are, Tampa's going to score in the high 20s, and the Eagles are going to have to score some points. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that means Jalen's going to have one of his better games.
In order to prevent them from doing that, I understand Jonathan Gannon's going to have one of his best schemes drawn up. I asked you about advice for Hurts. What would you talk to Jonathan Gannon about? From all your years in the NFL, what would you talk to him about trying to do in this game against Tom Brady and that still stacked, regardless of how many injuries they have, Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense?
Well, he needs a younger Fletcher Cox. He needs Fletcher to have one of his better games. He needs Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox to have good games because they need pressure right up the gut. They need that quick pressure where, you got Brady throwing the ball away and starting to get mad, and Brady gets frustrated. He doesn't say anything, but you can see it with his face and everything that he's mad at his offensive line because he had to throw the ball away, and he's getting hit a number of times. So that's the way they got to start out. And whatever they've got to do, if they've got to blitz up the middle, They got to do that, and they got to take some chances. And if they get picked up, they could end up giving up a big play. But that's what they've got to do. They can't afford to just let him sit back there and pick them apart. So they've got to get some pressure on him early. And that's going to be key parts of the game. And I think Jonathan Gannon, he's got to take some chances. He's got to go after him with some extra guys. So, you want to send, some of your better blitzers. And Jannard Avery is probably the guy I would want to see going. And, they got to have good games from Josh Sweat, the guys outside, Derek Barnett. The defensive line they're on the clock. They got to come up with a great game. And Jonathan Gannon will give them some help, but they got to do it themselves as well.
What do you think changed for this Eagles team midway through the season, defensively speaking? I know that they played a really easy schedule, and as a matter of fact, the Bucs and the Eagles had like the two easiest schedules in the second half of the season. But did you see anything done by Jonathan Gannon in order to make this a better defense?
Oh, yes, he did. One thing he did, he went to a 5-man front. So what that did was, and you can tell, this came after he had to talk with Fletcher Cox, where Fletcher was complaining about being double teamed all the time. Mm-hmm. So when you get in a 5-man front, basically what it does is it makes the offensive line, they all got to pick up the guy one man to man. Now they will get help from tight ends and running backs at times, but for the most part, they got to block, especially the guys in the middle. They got to block those guys one-on-one. And that has helped them to get that quick pressure on the quarterback. And they've had success with that, going with that 5-man front. And they really add Jannard Avery to one of the ends. That's what they do. And with the 5-man front, it forces the opposing team to block single block all of your pass rushers. And it's been successful. But that does mean that you don't have as many guys back there in coverage. But you know what? If it means getting quick pressure on the quarterback, you got to give something else. And so they got to give up something. And Jannard Avery, that's where he's been having success. And the rest of the line with Josh Sweat and all the rest of them, when they force them to single block them, that's when they've had pass rush success.
Gotcha. Were you surprised at all that Jonathan Gannon was already getting head coaching consideration?
Yeah, I'm surprised by it. But he's a young guy who I guess, he's hot right now. I think he's growing. I think eventually he will be a head coach. And I like the way he's progressed this year because he has mixed things up. He's showed a lot of different looks subtly. And that's what he's going to have for Tom this week. The thing is, Tom has seen everything, so he'll probably get rid of the ball. But the big thing the Eagles have got to do is they've got to just play good football. That means when you are one-on-one, you got to beat your man sometime. Mm-hmm. If they have you play man-to-man coverage in the secondary, you got to cover your man. We got to play man-to-man sometime. I'm sorry. You can't tell guys, oh, coach, we're man-to-man. Hello. The reason you're over here making the money you're making is because you can cover people. So cover your man. And they're going to have to play some man-to-man because, Tampa's too good to just sit in that zone. Tom will pick them apart because they don't play zone well. There are some teams that play a real stingy zone. The Eagles have not learned to play that stingy zone. They just drop off everybody and give everything away. And that's not really the way you're supposed to play zone, but they don't play zone well. Mm-hmm. They got to play man-to-man. And they got to get somebody home. Somebody's got to get home. That means they got to get to Brady. And that ultimately is what the game's going to come down to. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Gannon is going to try to help him. When he gets them in that 5-man front, somebody's got to beat their man. They got to beat their man. Somebody's got to come clean. And they got to do it quickly.
Two more things for you, my friend. Jalen Hurts, starting quarterback next year and beyond. Starting quarterback just next year. What's your assessment so far?
Well, I think right now he is the starting quarterback next year.
Okay.
Because it's not a big draft. I don't think they have, any great quarterbacks in the draft. And I think he's played well enough to do that. After that, it depends on how he plays next year. If he continues to improve, he could end up being the guy. But I can't say he earned being, the guy here for the next 5 years. I can't say that right now.
All right. How about this one? You have the helmets right there behind you. USC, Lions, Eagles, and then that other team. But when you played here in Philadelphia, you're obviously a linebacker for many years in the NFL. Could you ever see a stretch that we have gone through here in Philadelphia since Jeremiah Trotter, where the Eagles really haven't had that upscale, upper echelon linebacker. Could you have ever imagined the Eagles going through this long, and will it end with 3 first-round picks in the upcoming NFL draft?
I didn't think that I would ever see that. When I was here, I saw a young Seth Joyner. I saw him develop into what I think. I think Seth could be a Hall of Fame linebacker because he was probably the best all-round linebacker that I've seen. Meaning that he was good as a blitzer, he was a good coverage guy, he was good against the run, and he was a versatile, probably the most talented when it came to doing everything. I guess Micah Parsons is going to challenge some of that now. But I definitely never saw that happening, because it was such a defensive mentality here in Philadelphia that it really kind of a shock that they had abandoned it. But I can understand why, because the game has changed.
Sure.
But I think still right now, if you see the guys with the special linebackers have the defenses that are separators, meaning that's the way Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl last year. A lot of it had to do with those 2 inside linebackers they had. Guys that could run, they could run almost with a wide receiver, and they could come up and tackle and play the run. You need guys like that. So I think they will get a big-time linebacker in this draft, no doubt about it, because they need it.
All I need to hear right now. And then finally, they have a shot. They got a shot on Sunday.
Yeah, I definitely think they have a shot on Sunday, but it's going to be with the running game. I think they can run the ball on Tampa. The Carolina Panthers were running the ball in Tampa's last game. Other teams have been running the ball on Tampa. I think the Eagles can run the ball on them. They got to take care of the football. The defense is going to have to play well. And the big thing is going to come down to this. When you're in the red zone, you got to get money in the red zone. And money is not field goals. Money is touchdowns.
Yeah, $6
so you gotta
bills.
Get money when you get in the red zone, and that's what it's going to come down to for the Eagles.
Absolutely. Garry Cobb, always great catching up with you. I always enjoy when we're on Fox 29 together. I know you're doing a slew of other things as well. Appreciate you coming on. The great Garry Cobb, ladies and gentlemen, joining us on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line. Thank you, G. Cobb.
My pleasure. Go Birds.
Go. My thanks to Garry Cobb. G. Cobb himself. G. Cobb, with you? Joining us right there on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line. So before I hit record on little thing right there, and was talking to Garry, we were just catching up for a second, and we were just talking about, I didn't realize that he went to school, I think it was for psychology at USC, and I went to Temple for communications. I don't like to brag, but okay. And we were just talking about the business and all that stuff, and I didn't know this. He went to Temple. He went to USC, but he was here in Philadelphia. He was like, all right, I see what some of these guys are doing after their playing careers. I better get in the know when it comes to how to be a broadcaster, just in case I'm ever a broadcaster in my post-playing career. So he actually went to Temple and took communications classes. How about that? And he said he did news reporting, and he did camera work, and he did editing, and actually he did some stuff with, I want to say, Bill Anderson of Fox, if I'm not mistaken. They were both at Temple at the same time. I did not know that. USC proud, Trojan proud, no doubt. Garry Cobb, also a sort of Temple owl as well. How about that, G. Cobb? My man. And all the years I've known G. Cobb, and it's been about 17 years I've known that guy. I never knew that. I used to produce his shows at WIP when I was just getting started, and that never came up until just a little conversation we had before we taped an interview for this program. So there you go. Garry Cobb, appreciate him jumping on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line. And speaking of Rothman Orthopaedics, when you have an orthopedic issue, you need a physician who eats, sleeps, breathes orthopedics. You need an exceptionally specialized Rothman Orthopaedics physician. They not only specialize in orthopedics, but each of their physicians only focuses in on one area of the body, which means you can have the confidence to get past the pain and be what you were. Learn more at RothmanOrtho.com. That's RothmanOrtho.com. Rothman Orthopaedics, the official orthopedic partner of your Phillies, Eagles, and Sixers. How about the amazing people of BetQL? If you want to get the advantage over your sports book, You need to download the BetQL app, the only app you'll need to make the smart bets. Their best bets computer model scans over 350,000 unique bets per year to give you the best bet recommendation for every game across all major sports, and they give you the reasoning behind why you should place that bet. Their model covers everything from point spreads, over-unders, and player props. If you don't want to use their model and prefer to do your own research, BetQL has all the necessary tools for your betting research needs. Everything from sharp data, line movement, team summaries, lineups, injuries, breaking news. They even have a leaderboard for you to track your own success. And you'll have a lot of it. Head to the App Store right now or Google Play Store and download the BetQL app. How about the people of PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs, phlsportsnation.com. Download the WinView app for all you people that like to have a good time when it comes to a little friendly wager between fans. WinView is the only game where fans can take on other fans and end the debate once and for all. Who's the biggest sports fan? If you have those friends and family members who think they know everything about sports, challenge them right there to a WinView contest and see if they can walk the walk as well as they talk the talk. That's how you break up the monotony of family dinners and get-togethers. Play a little quarter of Wild Card Weekend. See what happens in a WinView contest. It's not a sports book. It's not daily fantasy. It's a social gaming app where fans can win real money prizes for making predictions on the games that they love so much. So make sure you download the WinView app. Now it's time for everyone's favorite part of the show, the chat check, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, man, you guys were cooking up spicy meatballs today. Let's see what you guys had going on here today. One person had one of my favorite comments ever in the chat, and I hope I get to it here. Kevin's leading it off for us. Good morning, Kevin, and everybody. Nice to see you. Mac, nice to see you. Inside the Birds, predictions for Sunday. What did I say Monday? The Eagles weren't going to win. As the week goes on, I continue to get more optimistic about this game. And I'll tell you why tomorrow, but because it's Friday. But I'm getting more and more optimistic as the game goes on. Mac is saying, I feel like Elton Brand is like one of the kids in the cars with their parents who have a fake steering wheel, but they think it's real and that they're driving. I look forward to that trick. Although I think my daughter will be on to me immediately. Yeah, baby, there you go. There you go. Use that. By the way, just a little aside. My wife, if I'm acting like a jackass, which is 99.9% of my life, my wife will generally try to rein me in by going, babe. And now my daughter has started saying, babe. And it's the funniest damn thing I ever heard in my life. Anyway, side note. Mac, electric sleigh. Sleigh is electric. Feels like Fisher Price steering wheel. Mac, you're not wrong. Mac, King Mally. Mally! What's up, buddy? Nice to have you back. Fuji, what's going on, buddy? Nice to have you. Craig, what's going on? I like Craig Duffars. What's up, Craig? April, good morning to you. Chris, good morning. Says good morning to Mally. And Chris has Mally and then a poodle and then a goat. And then he says meant to put a goat, not a poodle. Laugh out loud. Mally says, I see G Cobb is special. Getting unbuttoned Marc today. You're welcome. I noticed, I glanced down, and every once in a while, this shirt's got the plunging neckline. Nobody needs that. Miss Guzzi. Mally, I see G Cobb, especially there you are. Sorry. Poodles, the poodle's hilarious. April, mental health was never Ben Simmons' thing. That's who she's referring to. He saw Lane Johnson and said, oh, I'm going to use that. April, it's crossed my mind. It's definitely crossed my mind. I don't know if it's specifically Lane Johnson, but I think a lot of people that have had the Barrett Brooks is another one. I think he has seen the way people have reacted to it, and I'm not touching that. And I think that his camp, if not Ben Simmons, but his camp might have said, let's roll that out and see what happens. Farzy, you need to sneak you into that press conference with Ben Simmons when he makes his return, Mac. Yeah, let's hope so. April, man, so I guess I just need to get into the NBA and get traded to get off my meds. Who knew? April, it's just that easy. Hey, you know what? Let me just say this. And I've told you guys before about my own mental health issues, and thank goodness, I am so beyond blessed. I'm good. But as a kid, I went through like really crazy obsessive compulsive disorder and like a crazy germ phobia and all that stuff. And probably I shouldn't use the word crazy, but I'm talking about myself here. But I was able, I had some therapy and whatever, and I feel great, and it doesn't affect me now. But I got through it. But to describe any type of mental health issue to people that have no idea of what it is, it's a weird thing where, at least for me, it was like in my mind, I could acknowledge that what I was doing, like doing things in patterns, was bonkers. Like, again, talking about me. But you couldn't justify it to yourself to stop doing it. It's like, I know this is weird, but I got to keep doing it. Obsessive compulsive disorder. It's the weirdest thing. So for people that actually try to go through it or would try to or get over it, or for someone that would abuse it and say, oh, no, I got this going on. Like, that's just the least compassionate thing you could do probably as a human being is mock somebody else's struggle. When that struggle is very real. And if this turns out to be the case with Ben Simmons, if even he comes out in his introductory press conference, I never said I had any mental health issues. What? It's like, so all this stuff was just getting said out of nowhere. People were leaking this. Why? People were making this up. Why? And that would reset a lot of people, because in the back of people's minds, somebody says they have a mental health issue. Oh, are they like that Ben Simmons guy and his camp and what they were saying? Yeah, that's not going to exactly be a good thing for the rest of us. Mally says, preach. Thank you, Mally. Appreciate it. Mac, Farzy, when you sneak in the press conference, Mac, I don't get why a team like Oklahoma City or Memphis or Charlotte isn't offering a lot for him. They can't attract big free agents. You get a young guy in his prime with room for improvement on a 4-year deal. That's a good idea. Mac, that's not far off from what our friend Paul Hudrick was telling us just a couple of weeks ago. Like, if you're OKC, why wouldn't you make that trade? That's a huge upside. And then you could also trade him in a couple of years because he could come into his own in OKC. Yeah, I'd make that deal if I'm Oklahoma City. If I'm the Sixers too, let's party. Craig, what's going on? Mike. Mike, I'm the pettiest person ever, so I love Morey holding his ground with Ben Simmons. Mike, I just can't continue to think that we're wasting Joel Embiid's prime. That's like watching, like the point streak's great for Joel Embiid, 30 points, but nobody has parades for 30-point streaks. And I love Joel Embiid, and I've said so many times how we got to be so appreciative. And as I said earlier in the week, it's more of a coping mechanism to acknowledge how appreciative we should be of Joel Embiid, because Joel Embiid might only be what we have with this 76ers run. And I know a lot of people, especially with numbers coming out, to compare him to Wilt or Allen Iverson and all that. Wilt won a championship. Allen Iverson got to a championship. I'm not going Joel Embiid versus Allen Iverson until I see Joel Embiid at least play in a conference final. But in order to do that, it can't just be the Joel Embiid show. He's going to need a hell of a lot of help. And what really sucks is, and I know Tobias Harris recently came out and said he's been dealing with a shoulder injury. It's just wild to me that throughout this entire season, you felt like it was the Joel Embiid show. I mean, Tyrese Maxey was great for a stretch there when Joel Embiid wasn't on the court. He really came into his own as an NBA player through that stretch. But I feel like Joel Embiid is going out there every single night alone. Seth Curry's had some great runs, but until they get that other player that will be I hate this analogy, the Robin to Batman, then this team isn't going anywhere. And as much as I would love to see Ben Simmons lose this fight, I just feel like the clock is ticking on Joel Embiid. And until they get help in here for Joel Embiid, we're all just going to have to marvel at the performances of Joel Embiid and not the accomplishments of the 76ers as a whole. And that ain't good enough. It's not why we went through the years of tanking and the process and all that just to marvel at one basketball player. We did it to win a championship. We did it to be a legit championship contender for years to come. Not, 3 years? Where you thought you had something special here in Philly with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid? Jimmy Butler? Oh, my goodness. The saga continues. Mike, and he got engaged on the down low. He did get engaged to that lady, the British lady, I believe she is. She's a TV presenter. In my time of knowing Pierre Robert, one of the things he highlighted in a Lifetime Achievement Award he got was that in London they refer to, or in England they refer to radio DJs as presenters. And he said, I always felt like that was a more appropriate title for what he did as a DJ. And he was like, presenter. Yeah, I believe this woman that Ben Simmons got engaged to is a television presenter. So there you go. Can we talk about how Joel is just manhandling the team? Mally, I'm happy to talk about it. I love it, but I'd like to see a parade in Philadelphia as well. Cody, how come I have to imagine Rondé Barber with Todd Pinkston in the background when I think of Eagles Bucks in the playoffs? Because we're all scarred. We're horribly scarred people. Matt, what's going on? Temple proud. Damn right. Mally, so I was wondering, looking at Sirianni, is that Marc? Marc, is that what you look like with hair? Yes, and about 30 pounds later. Mally, Cody, all you have to remember is that number 5 will always love you. Oh, no. Wait, April, she says, my husband was going to wait until the Super Bowl, but he saw that Rondé Barber run and thought, well, better do it now. Wait, is that the game? Did I see, April, you got engaged at that game? Is that what you said? You actually got engaged during that game. At what point, April? Right at the end of that run? April, you mean the world to me. And this is my lowest point as an Eagles fan. So take me out of it. Will you marry me? Is that how it went? April, smart man. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Slumlord. Nice to have you. Always nice to have Slumlord in. Jalen found out Jeff McClain is friends with Sealski and said, next question. Chris, now, like, what the hell's wrong with you people? Cody, Farzy, I thought you were making a transition to the Steven Singer read. Speaking of defense and adjustments, be on defense this Valentine's Day and make adjustments to your holiday gifts. That's great. Evan, what's going on? Welcome in. Bryce Harper's pretty entertaining. I like that Bryce Harper fella. Evan, thank you for phonetically spelling Capitan. What you mean grab many? I've lost track of what's happening here. Cody, this is one of my favorite things ever written in the chat. Does G Cobb just have his wife standing on a ladder recording him? It was a high shot. It was rather high. I hope you guys don't have vertigo. G Cobb said, I'm going to have more unbuttoned buttons than Marc today. OnlyFans versus. Mally, you never know. You never know. John Cheeseborough, what's up, buddy? Nice to see you. Marc, nice to have you. Cecil, Arians, Bulls, Farzetta. Yeah, damn right. Temple proud, baby. By the way, here's when you're officially old. I remember when I started going to Temple and I would talk to other like older Temple alum and they're like, oh man, you don't even recognize that campus. You go to it now. It's all, I never say this word right. Hoity toity. It's all, glamour now. When I went there, it was a trailer and you had to get mugged 4 times when I went to class. And then when I started going back to Temple afterwards, like go to games and I was hosting events there and stuff. Oh my God. I was like, now I'm that old SOB that's like, I don't even recognize this campus. Anyway, Zach Farzy knows hi. What? Ronnie, what's going on? We need more Alfreds, not Robins. He was worthless. Alfred was the calm during the storm. Not before the storm, during the storm. April, I really did sum it up well. That's how your husband proposed? Wow, that is... God bless him. I'll tell you what, you married a good dude. That's great. Not that you need me to tell you that. John Cheeseborough, tomorrow when I actually get up on time, I'll begin the Farsyisms in order for us to get at least a 2-hour show. All right, John. All right. What time? I'm a little over today. I'm a couple of minutes over an hour today. There you go. What? Somebody's mom tweeted? I know it wasn't my mom. Oh, JJ-isms. JJ, I think of Whiteside. Oh, his jacked up finger. Yeah. No thanks. No thanks. I don't need to see that. And I got a cast iron stomach. Like, I don't throw up easy. I don't get queasy. Like, I could eat a shrimp cocktail while watching surgery. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I don't know why that was a brag. But anyway, thanks everyone for participating in the chat. You guys are awesome as per usual. Thank you very much. Let's jump into our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. Wanted to get into this. Doug Peterson interviewing with the Chicago Bears. That happened yesterday. Sixers, Celtics tonight. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock tip-off. Sixers try to start another winning streak. Joel Embiid will go for a franchise record 9 straight 30-point games. Flyers drop the puck with the Bruins tonight, 7 o'clock, trying to snap their 5-game losing streak. Claude Giroux, Travis Konechny, Ivan Provorov. I feel like there's one other guy. Hopefully making the return tonight for the Orange and Black to help him get off that schneid, as I said. Also, Adam Schefter reporting this story yesterday. Philadelphia Eagles Vice President of Football Operations, Catherine Raish, is set to interview for the Vikings general manager position per a source. If she gets that job, she'll be the second female to hold a general manager position in the NFL. I believe it was Susan Fletcher that held her position in 1983. So that was a long time ago. So there you go, Catherine Raish. There we go. And I also thought about what we were talking about yesterday with, or 2 days ago with Adam Kaplan about how they try to be a GM and quarterback factory. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. My name is Marc Farzetta. Thanks for joining us here on the Farzy Show. My thanks to Jim Hyden, who produced the program, did a phenomenal job, as per usual. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. We'll be back with you guys on a Football Friday, talking about Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Take it easy.